What is up? What is up? We're hitting a Dynasty Superflex mock draft today here, startup edition. We are 11 days away from the NFL draft. Really getting down to the wire with these prospect takes. I don't know about you, Danny. I'm getting a little bit sick of the stuff I'm seeing, particularly on one UNC quarterback, Drake May, on the Twitter timelines. I'm ready for the NFL draft to get here and for Drake May to go second or third overall, and everything that we've heard about him just be a result of the Vikings trying to get him to slide down the board. But should be fun. We're going to tackle a mock draft today. I will drop the link for said mock draft in the chat. All the rules are on the screen there. You can see Dynasty Superflex, half tight end premium, start 10. It will be a non-third round reversal this time. We did a third round reversal last time, so we'll switch it up and keep it a non-third round reversal this time. Link down below in the YouTube chat there. So if you guys want to join the mock, we need 10 of you guys to help fill this thing out, but should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of Drake May, obviously, the big conversation all offseason has basically been, who does Washington leave at too? Now, obviously, when the offseason started, it was like, I remember when we recorded our quarterback rankings on the site, we were kind of like looking at each other like, ooh, like Jaden Daniels quarterback 3, like we felt like nobody was like talking about it yet. And then all of a sudden, within the next month, we're talking about him potentially being over Drake May on a lot of consensus boards. And if you're actually looking at the betting market right now and you're looking at potentially what Schefter has said. So Schefter's been asked multiple times and he's basically told Commanders fans, he's like, yeah, if you guys want a jersey, you may as well go get a Jaden Daniels jersey in Washington right now because he views it as a lock. And on top of that, the betting market actually has Jaden Daniels number 2 overall pick odds at minus 230 as of today. So
yeah,
it looks like it's going to be Daniels.
Yeah, not to mention he also talked on a podcast that he thinks J.J. McCarthy might actually slide to the Minnesota Vikings too, rather than going in the 4th overall pick or the 5th overall pick. And I think that makes a lot of logical sense to me just because I look at how good these wide receiver prospects are. 4, 5, and 6 teams, the Cardinals, Chargers, and Giants in desperate need of wide receivers. So I kind of understand why J.J. McCarthy would slide. Why would you want to trade off of Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, or Rome Odunze if you're those teams in desperate need of just
it would be based on the package.
A great wide receiver to add to your core.
It would be based on the package you get. Like if you're
I think even in that case though, the package that you get, like why do teams trade down in the NFL draft when they don't like the board?
Well, that, and also I do feel like value should take place. Like, for example, Arizona, when they picked number 3 overall last year and then traded back up for Paris Johnson, they probably said, you know what, we value Paris Johnson here, but we feel like we can get him a couple picks later. Why not take this huge package from Houston, get their future first, get that big package from them, and then move up with less of that package to get the guy that we were probably taking at 3 anyways. I can see the logic in that. Like maybe, the Cardinals at 4, you could take Marv here, or you could trade down and then trade back up to like 8 and get like Rome. But like you kind of said, it's like, they're good enough prospects where I can see teams just being fine sticking and picking. On top of that, you know where I think the trade would come, and Hayden actually pointed this in the recent mock that he did, was
at
maybe
8 with the Falcons.
That would make a ton of sense if he falls out of the top 7 and Minnesota already getting that 23 overall pick is like, you know what, fuck it. Like we'll give 11th plus a 3rd round pick to move up to 8 rather than 11.
Well, it'll cost them more than that, I would imagine.
Or maybe a 2nd or something like that. Like that's probably the cost to move up 3 picks.
Yeah, but like at the same time, you look at it, and it makes logical sense. It's like 4 doesn't want to trade off of Marvin, 5 doesn't want to trade off of Malik, 6 doesn't want to trade off of Odunze, 7 doesn't want to trade off of Joe Alt. Like they all need those players so badly, it makes sense why they wouldn't want to trade down.
For sure. And like it would have to be that you would assume that one would fall back. But like you said, if Arizona trades out of 4 and then can't trade back up to 8, then you're completely running the risk that you don't get a receiver for Kyle.
And I think they probably, the reason that they haven't done it yet already is because they know that they won't get one of the top receivers.
By the way, it is on rookies only, I believe.
Oh, is the ADP rookies only? Okay, but anyways,
does it say one?
Yeah, it is. You're right. Okay, it's gonna be rookies and veterans, obviously. But make sure if you guys want to join here, we do need one more of you to get this thing going. And we should be good to go. It's not filled on your end, right? Because I've refreshed my page a couple times to see if it's full.
There's team 1 that hasn't been filled on my end.
Okay, so yeah, we do need one more of you guys. We do have the link in the chat down below. Let's answer some questions in the meantime. Big hype. What's going on, Brock? Can Kincaid be a hammer tight end in 2024 and tight end premium and standard? I would say from a dynasty perspective, he's already being treated that way. My question about Kincaid is really just like,
Is he
a
good?
good enough needle moving player to be able to be a hammer tight end? Because if he is, then he absolutely will be, given the lack of target competition in his offense now. And, the fact that he was a first round pick and he's very athletic and he plays with Josh Allen and all that kind of stuff.
He's in a tricky spot where he's got the most setup situation we could possibly ask for. But the question, in my opinion, still remains: is he good? Like, is he good? Also, is this not on third round reversal?
No, I mentioned that already. We're gonna do.
Oh,
We did third round reversal last time, so we'll do a non-third
fair.
round reversal this time. Also,
Okay.
a rare 102 for me and a 111 for Danny. Usually we
Yeah.
are swapped in this area.
Of
Glad
course, I get the 111 in the non-third round reversal draft.
Yeah, of course. Patrick Mahomes give me my pick there. Obviously, nothing too crazy. Although we did have, in the last week or two, we've seen that CJ Stroud has elevated himself even potentially in some rooms above these top two quarterbacks. I can't quite get there
Can't
yet.
get there.
If you wanted to tell me you would
3.
take CJ Stroud as high as third overall, I don't think I would question you too much. But at the same time, the raw fantasy output projection of a Jalen Hurts or of a Lamar Jackson makes me think that if you value CJ Stroud 103, you're in a very youth heavy room where you maybe don't intend to compete. It also could be a 6-point per passing touchdown type of format. So again, CJ Stroud, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, I view those guys pretty interchangeably. You view that the same outside of Joe Burrow. So
Yeah.
for me, it's all depending on, what kind of room you think you're in. If you're in a room where you want to go competitive and it's a 4-point per passing touchdown type of league, to me, I just can't pass on Hurts and Lamar Jackson for CJ Stroud. But if you're in a room where it's 6-point and, it's more of a youth heavy room, you think that everyone's going to be drafting redraft style teams, then I think CJ Stroud is a fine value at 103, 104, 105. But regardless, I mean, how many times you see a second-year quarterback at the ancillary weapons that he has to be able to produce? He has 3 great wide receivers that all fill different roles that can all be great options in his offense. Good tight end. Decent enough running game now with Joe Mixon. They'll probably add some other pieces behind Dameon Pierce and Joe Mixon as well. So it's really good, man. He's really, really well set up. The coaching staff, the defense, hopefully they add some more protection for him at some point in the draft as well. But yeah, CJ Stroud's very, very well set up at this point.
Sorry if you saw me make a face. I realized I had the sleeper notification volume on, so I just got ear blasted by the boop. But
Yeah, love to see it.
I'm on the clock here, and if you guys have checked out my rankings, you'll know that I do value the wide receivers comparatively high. And if you tell me right now in a startup I can get Jamar Chase at the 111, I will take Jamar Chase at the 111 every single time.
Yeah, that's very good. Kincaid has the situation, the potential target share. Buffalo drafted in the first round. Yeah, I mean, it really, in my opinion, like Dalton Kincaid being either a buy or a sell in Dynasty completely depends on your opinion of Dalton Kincaid, the talent. Because everything else, there's not really been a tight end this well set up to produce in year 2 and take a massive leap in terms of value like Dalton Kincaid has been set up for. So go back and watch the film from last year, check the numbers, the targets per route run, the, PFF receiving grade, all that kind of stuff. We might do like an individual deep dive on Kincaid because I do think he's a very interesting topic because
Definitely
if you get him in round 6 or something of a startup in a tight end premium, he could be a 3rd round startup pick by midseason next year. And it wouldn't shock me at all, but he could also fall out of favor because he's maybe not the best player in the world. So I thought he was a good prospect. I think he could definitely gain some value. It just all depends on what he does in year 2.
Yep. And it's back on my pick on the clock. Obviously, Jamar Chase, the 111. I usually like getting a quarterback in the first 2 rounds, but I do view some value on Marvin Harrison. He's my highest rated player. So let's have some fun. Let's go some double wide receiver build at the 11th spot. Because I do feel like if you're going to do this type of build, it usually will come at the 11th spot because that'll mean that Jamar Chase or one of the top 3 receivers probably fell back to you, meaning that the quarterbacks probably got pushed up the board. So for me personally, if I can land at the 111, Chase, Harrison, and still be able to, pick out that mid-range potentially if this is a 311. Typically speaking, you would want to do this in the 3rd round reversal, but who knows? Maybe like Dak falls or something like that in some of your rooms.
Yeah, that's definitely a fair point. Also, if you guys are in the draft, this rookies only tab is where you'll find the rookies. Just thought I'd shout that out so you know that because, Drake May and some of these guys should come off the board soon. Speaking of rookies, we got a question here from Matt. He says, I got offered Neighbors in exchange for Bowers and my 2025 second in a 12-team Superflex 1.0 tight end premium. So what I would ask you, does that mean tight ends get 2 points per reception? Because in that case, Brock Bowers is probably going to cost you more in my, you're the one with Bowers, I guess. I would probably want more for Brock Bowers if that's the case.
I mean, it is tricky.
I would say if it's straight, if it's 1-for-1 in this league format, I think it's fair. But if you have to pay a plus on top of Bowers to get to Neighbors, I would personally hold.
If you have another stud tight end, I'm cool with making this move, is kind of how I view it. Especially if you're expecting to compete this year. I would agree with you because of the 1.0 premium. Obviously, it lends more value to Bauer's side here. But at the same time, if you have another top 8 tight end already on your team, there's no use in getting Bowers. And if this is the market value to go up to Neighbors and cause yourself to not have a logjam at tight end, I'd be willing to do it.
Yeah, that's a tough thing because in a vacuum, Bowers and a 2-point tight end premium should be an extreme value in rookie drafts. But at the same time, the tight end position it feels like is the deepest that it's been in years. So he loses some value just by happenstance of guys that have emerged and whatnot. So with Brock Bowers, it's like, yeah, in most years, he would be potentially like if this was 2 years ago and Kyle Pitts was the only viable production at tight end, how high is Brock Bowers going in rookie drafts relative to where he's going now? Like, I think you could really make the argument that he would be the 103 or the 104 in that type of tight end market, especially in any kind of tight end premium format. But right now, we have all these veteran tight ends that you can grab, the George Kittles, the David Njokus of the world. And we got some young guys like Sam Laporta, Dalton Kincaid, Michael Mayer, all these dudes that have excitement around them. It's not Brock Bowers and the rest of the world in terms of the tight end landscape.
For sure. What's up, fellas? First Superflex startup coming up, and I couldn't be more excited. Let's go. We're actually, just about round 14 of our first Flock Fantasy startup draft of the offseason. We'll give you guys a little bit of an update. So after this draft, we'll kind of show you how the board's kind of ekened out, how each of our teams have kind of materialized, because it is fun context, especially if you guys are getting into startups, knowing kind of how our rooms kind of look like too.
Yeah, and I would say like a couple people in the league, Schmidt specifically has mentioned this. He's like, dude, I thought being in a sharp dynasty startup would be fun. And you know, the room is like, anytime you think, oh, this guy's buried in ADP, I'm sure he'll make it back to me in 2 rounds.
He's gone
like
within a few
next
picks.
pick off the board. It's like all of these players that are in this room have played dynasty before, have multiple dynasty teams. We understand. Not just us too, like the players we're playing with, understand where players should be going and that kind of thing. So yeah, makes for a very interesting wrinkle for a lot of people's dynasty teams.
Well, it's funny because I told you, but basically when I first took the 108, and again, like it made sense from a process standpoint. Oh, a couple receivers I like, but I think the 108 is the needle moving pick. So I took it at the 408 overall, which typically it falls in some rooms, but that's about the equivalent value, I would say. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, oh, I kind of took this ahead of ADP. I wonder how the boys think. And like, I got a couple messages basically saying like, oh, you sniped me. Like I was planning on JJ McCarthy falling back to me if I missed out a quarterback on the top. And that was at the 408. So that just kind of goes to show you, like, if you feel like something is mispriced, but you aren't necessarily sure if you can get it or not in the next round in a sharp room, typically speaking, it's probably unlikely that you do get it to fall back.
Yeah, I was kind of caught on the clock there. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Did I want to make, try and go for a rebuilding build and go with like a Malik Neighbors there? Or like I saw Jahmyr Gibbs on the board. I was like, hey, I could go with Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe double tap AJ Brown on the way back here and build out a nice competitive team. Given that I'm going rebuilding or competitive, why would you go Jahmyr Gibbs and Jayden Daniels? I thought for sure that they would both fall back to me there. That's kind of irritating. But I guess I'll just take AJ Brown if nobody wants AJ Brown here. Could go Laporta as well, actually.
Yeah.
Shit.
It's a solid pick. I'm putting a couple guys.
I'm going to go Laporta. I want to see what it looks like when I go with a early tight end. I don't typically go with Sam Laporta because, like I said, even though he's the tight end 1 in Dynasty, in other years when the tight end landscape looks worse, I think Laporta would be a back end first round startup pick.
Yeah. It's tough. I think 3.2 is probably about appropriate value for him. For reference, where do I?
But if we nuked 5 more top 6 dynasty tight ends and Laporta was all you had basically at the top of the board, he would gain so much value, and that's why Kyle Pitts was going back end first, early second for a while 2 years ago, is because he was like really outside of Kelsey and like those guys. Like you didn't feel that great even about a TJ Hawkinson or a Mark Andrews. Relative to the rest of the landscape, not to mention like all the depth that tight end seems to have with your Dalton Schultz, Cole Kmet, Jake Ferguson's of the world.
For sure. By the way, nice pick on Mr. Prescott. I have Laporta ranked number 30 overall, but I do feel like he's in a good range there. Really what I've noticed is, I mean, I'll point to a guy that I have ranked ahead of the market at this spot here. But once you get to like the mid to late range of round 3 is where I notice the biggest tier break, which is why I personally, especially this offseason, knowing how big of a difference it is in value between Jaden, Jameer versus like what we're going to be seeing at the 3-4 turn. Is that's kind of why I'm believing in a third round reversal this year, because I really do feel like the top of the first round is so much better in relation to the back of the first round, but also the top of the third round is so much better in relation to the back of the third round. So I feel like third round reversal like evens out the playing field in that regard.
Yeah, I will say I'm generally against third round reversal in like as a rule, but I will say this offseason I've been the least against it because of what you just mentioned. Is like I there is a pretty sizable difference I've noticed this year between picking early in the first round and picking late in the first round, and then also like you said, picking early in the third round and late in the third round. So we see a lot of players going off the board here. Nothing too outrageous in terms of values. I think the wide receiver position's kind of drying up in terms of the top 12 dynasty wide receiver rankings. Smidge early for me on Tua. I'm not quite that high on him. I need to get him in round 4 if I'm going to take him at all. And honestly, he's a guy that I worry about because I was talking to my buddy last night, who's a Bills fan. He was just, he's not a huge like dynasty guy. He just is a Bills fan. He's wondering, what do you think is going to happen with the Bills this year? And I was like, you know what? I think the Bills are probably going to follow the Los Angeles Rams path from last year, where, try and hit on your rookie or your draft picks. Have like a rebuilding year. You'll probably still make the playoffs as like the 5, 6, or 7 seed because you have Josh Allen, but this isn't your Super Bowl or bust season. You had to eat a lot of dead cap on Diggs and some of your defensive players. That this is a retooling year. And the opposite is true for Miami. Miami has to win this year because they have to pay Tua going forward. And it sounds like we've heard Tyreek Hill might retire after this year. So for me, Tua is an interesting asset because I'm not sure if he's going to get that long-term contract, knowing that they're going to have Tyreek Hill probably retire after this year. And then Tua is going to have to be up for a contract. So he's an interesting case.
Brett with the big snipe. I thought for sure I'd be able to get Rome Odunze at the end of the third round. We got to recalibrate our valuation on Rome Odunze in the market, because I see people are like, he's a 4th, 5th round startup pick. It's like, realistically, he's going to go top 10 in the NFL draft. He's 6'3". He's got alpha X wide receiver 1 size. He's going to be the number 1 in his offense, no matter who he's drafted at. Like, he should be a late third round startup pick. In my opinion.
15 seconds, by the way.
Brock Purdy's a good value, so I will take him here at 311.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's partially because we're very high on Odunze. Like, if you're in a league where people value the numbers and like the early declares and stuff like that, there's definitely going to be leagues where Odunze is available 106, 107, 108 in rookie drafts, and then also mid to late 4th round or something in startups. But I'm starting to believe that I won't see a single league where Rome Odunze falls to 107, to be honest.
Yeah. No,
like any of the leagues I play in, I don't see it happening. I think that everybody that I play with is high enough on Rome Odunze that he will be the 106. Maybe Bowers goes ahead of him to a tight end needy team, but for the most part, I have a lot of 107s this year, and I was hoping to get Odunze with some of them, and I am starting to think I will not.
Yeah, no, it's definitely tricky.
So T-Law's Shampoo, great name. What's up, fellas? 12-team PPR, start 10, 6-point per passing touchdown. Kyler or Watson and 2 firsts. Okay, I mean, I don't love Watson, the projection.
Watson and
but 2 firsts of installation to move off of Kyler to Watson, to me, is worth it.
It's such a good process deal, in my opinion, because as much as I love Kyler, like, I can make the case on current market that Kyler's about worth just over 220-25 first. And if it's a free roll basically on Deshaun Watson getting back value. It's basically
because there was a point in time where Kyler and Watson were interchangeable last offseason in terms of value, and the ceiling hasn't changed for Watson. The floor has changed for Watson.
Yes.
That's why he's totally different in value now than he was for us last offseason. But 2 insulated first-round picks of value is easily enough for me to make that claim, because like you said, you can make the argument that that's all Kyler's worth anyway, is 2 firsts.
By the way, this room making me take Christian McCaffrey is sickening.
Yeah, no kidding. Stroud plus 103 equals 101 plus 105 plus in a 12-team start 10. Okay, so I mean, let's look at the board here. You got 103 CJ Stroud goes 103 in the startup.
I don't know if I do this for the 106 on the other side.
Went mid-second. He says equals 101 and 105 plus. No, like Stroud is worth Stroud and 103 by a landslide, to be honest.
Is Stroud worth 101 plus 105 on his own?
I mean, we're talking about the 103 in this startup for the 110 in this startup, and then the 105 being Jaden Daniels going 105. I mean, he went 301, so he went pretty high, but yeah, I think that's about what Stroud is worth. I would say if somebody offered me Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels for CJ Stroud, I think I would accept that deal, to be honest, as a CJ Stroud manager, but I would not feel good about it. Like I would lose sleep losing on CJ Stroud. Lose sleep. What the hell is that?
It lays some sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
But yeah, I think Stroud is potentially worth more than that package. You know
I
what I mean?
agree
But
with
like
that
if you
package
break it
up.
down like this, it's like Stroud over 101, like easily, obviously, as much as we like Caleb
Yeah.
Williams, and then 103 over 105 easily
Yeah.
because you
I
get
don't
your
know how
pick
you got the
litter of that tier.
103 in that too. Like it's kind
Yeah,
of like whatever.
crazy
Yeah.
deal.
I'm not giving up Stroud for the 101 plus the
Yeah.
105.
Again,
He's
some
worth more.
people will. I think
Yeah.
that's a little rich for me because, but it is 6 point per passing touchdown league. I mean, a guy like Jaden Daniels would lose, but the
Right.
105 could also be Neighbors too. Like, would it change your mind if it's Caleb Williams and Malik Neighbors for CJ Stroud?
Yeah, look, he's asking what to ask on top of 101 plus 105 for Stroud plus 103. The difference is like, why are
A
you giving
25
him the
first.
103 for the 105 here? A and B, it's like it would probably have to be. I mean, realistically, yeah, a 2025 first plus on top of the other side here.
Yeah,
To be
I
totally
don't
honest
think
with
it's plus for me. I would say if you can get a
you. Okay.
2025 first, even giving back a second in 2025, I think I would
Yeah.
prefer 101, 105, and a 2025 first for Stroud 103 and like a late projected 2025 second. Again,
I would take Stroud side easily.
yeah, it's tough, man. Like
Like
the
I think it
price
would have to be a
difference
first
is
straight up
yeah, I
at
think it
least.
would have to be a first straight up now that I think about it. But it's tough, man. Like moving off of CJ Stroud in the 103 is like those are really, really elite assets. That's
Oh,
you'd
yeah.
have to be extremely high on Caleb Williams because there is a world where Caleb Williams is worth more than CJ Stroud. If he has as good of a rookie season, he'll probably be worth more. But
Yeah.
that's a lot of ifs. Like CJ
Yeah.
Stroud had maybe the best rookie season we've ever seen
Well, I think
from a
you're
quarterback.
also adding value to like you're giving him the 103 for the 105. And as much as people want to say, oh, the 103 to 105 range is pretty interchangeable, like there is still value to be had picking the number one of that group. Because I mean, even we see in this draft, like if you prefer Drake May to Jaden Daniels and to Malik Neighbors, like Drake May's going 2-7 here. So like having that preference, having that choice does matter. So like that 2025 first would both combat the difference between Caleb and Stroud and the difference between 105 and 103. And to be honest, one singular mid-projected 2025 one on the market, I don't know if that makes up the difference.
Yeah, I'm gonna do something weird here. I'm gonna grab your boy at 411. I think that's pretty good value for JJ
Love that
McCarthy, who we
value.
expect to be
Well,
a high pick. Again, I'm not as high on JJ
it,
McCarthy obviously as you are, but I still see what people are seeing. You know what I mean? Like I see the third down reel. I see the big time throws that he needs to make when he needs to make them. And if he goes to Minnesota, which is looking pretty likely,
yeah,
especially because I'm hearing some stuff like from beat reporters saying that like, yeah, the
they love him.
Patriots could trade down, but they're not going to. You know what I mean? Like I've heard a lot of people say that like, yeah, like this draft is going to go 1, 2, 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I mean, we were talking about it at the top of the draft. Like when I took the 108 at the 408, it felt a smidge early. It's like no, like you're even lower on JJ McCarthy than I am, and you got him at the 411 here. Like this is where his market value is going to nest. And to be honest, I think we're going to look back on it come NFL draft and think like, oh, where Jared Goff's going at the 4-1, we would much rather take JJ McCarthy there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm looking at this tier of wide receiver here. Again, this is like the clump of wide receivers where everybody
Yeah,
kind of blends together. It's like, do I want to take
the
Tank
glob.
Dell? I think maybe is a good fit for my build. I think Rashee Rice is a good fit for my build, but I'm a little worried off by the off the field stuff. JSN's obviously a little early for me. I'm gonna go Zay Flowers. I think he's a pretty clean projection, young player, fits my build totally.
Yeah,
Zay Flowers, like again, this tier of wide receivers, ironically, is like a decision point between a lot of the 2023 class. But Tank Dell, Rashee Rice, JSN, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers. I don't really have any argument with anybody saying that somebody should be a clear ahead of that group. Like I think you could make the argument realistically for any one of those guys.
by the way, I just noticed, speaking of the 108, the 8th overall rookie in this draft actually is Brian Thomas, who goes at the 4-5 here. I didn't even notice that. I thought JJ McCarthy would. So technically speaking, you got JJ McCarthy at the 109 valuation at the 411. And I mean, like JJ McCarthy at the 109 in itself, I think is a good value.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So
I didn't realize Ryan Thomas went off.
yeah, for sure. Dylan says traded 102 Christian Watson and 2/3 for Chase and Gabe Davis. So you essentially sold Marvin and some fodder for
Yeah.
Chase and Gabe Davis. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that move. I love me some Marvin Harrison, and again, there's a very real possibility he's valued more than Jamar Chase by midway through his rookie season.
Sure.
But if I can
Good
mitigate that
value.
risk completely and just take Jamar Chase, I'm going to do it. And Gabe Davis is probably worth the 2/3, or well, I guess 3/3. He said, sorry,
One
not
of the
2/3.
thirds. He's worth
I
a
think Gabe
third.
Davis is worth a third, give or take.
He's worth a third. So like
Yeah.
basically the way you're
That's
slicing
you
it
get the
is
you gave up the upside of that trade. The 3/3 Christian Watson and Marvin Harrison. this trade could smoke the other side of the trade. If Christian Watson hits and Marvin Harrison becomes Dynasty wide receiver 1, you lost this a lot. But you have the easiest, best asset in the deal.
Yeah, like you take a lot of the risk out, especially if you're a contending team. And as much as I love Marvin Harrison Jr., there's a big difference in contending team version between what Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to do in year 1 versus what we can expect from Jamar Chase. I mean, just look at the redraft value, right? In best ball right now, Jamar Chase is a consensus top 6 overall pick. And although we are very optimistic on Marvin Harrison, especially if he lands on the Cardinals, he's going to peak at what, maybe 15th overall in best ball,
which is pretty insane. That the
it's
best
still
ball
insane.
It's sharp enough that they're going to take a rookie wide receiver as a top 20 asset. Because like 5 years ago, he would have been a 4th or a 5th round pick.
Yeah, no, it's pretty remarkable. But it just goes to show you how sharp the market is actually getting.
Jared says, I might not have any picks this draft after having 4 firsts. Oh yeah, I mean, if you have 4 ones this year and no other picks, I mean, you're still going to be quite happy with what your haul is. What's up, Henry? What's going on? Hudson says Addison or the 108 in a 1 quarterback league start 8. Start 8 1 quarterback 108 is, we're talking back end of the tier 2 cluster. Most likely, we're talking Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey. One of those guys should be on the board. If not, RB1 is on the board. I don't know. What do you lean here? In a 1 quarterback league, do you want Jordan Addison or the 3rd tier 2 wide receiver or Addison. RB1 potentially?
Addison probably. That's close though. That's probably about equivalent value.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's pretty much exactly what he's worth. I will say I'm getting a little bit more spooked off of Addison with more of the advanced stuff that comes out. But at the same time, again, I believed in him pre-draft. He had a good rookie season. I'm still a believer now. So yeah, this is a fair deal. Whatever side you got of this, it was fair.
Yep. By the way, I am stumped for who I want to take here. I'm leaning a competitive asset because I have McCaffrey. I could just take Saquon Barkley because he's not far off the receivers I would have ranked here.
Also, Jared says 4 first, very close to turning into Chase, Breece, Ayuk, and Garrett Wilson. So I'm guessing what he means is he has 4 rookie firsts. One of them is probably 102, 103, which is what he means by Chase. Breece is probably 104, 105. Ayuk is probably 107 or something. Garrett Wilson is probably 104, 105 also. If you have those high-end first-round picks and you're in enough of a competitive window, if you want to cash out for those veterans at that price tag, I'm fine with it. And that's going to be a conundrum I think that a lot of people have this year in rookie drafts is if you have like 5 ones this year or something and your team is like 3 or 4 pieces away from being a stud competitive roster, and you want to just say, I'm not even going to take the risk on these rookies. I'm just going to cash out for absolute stud veterans. You can do it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You sacrifice some value accumulation because if this class does live up to the hype, we're going to be talking about 6 or 7 of these guys being top 2-round startup picks very quickly. If this class lives up to the hype, if Neighbors is a stud and Odunze is a stud and Marvin, there's an outside shot where the top 8 dynasty wide receivers 3 of them are from this class, and the top 10 dynasty quarterbacks, 3 of them are from this class. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. I mean, even you want to extend it to 4 of the top 12 dynasty quarterbacks. Like if JJ McCarthy, let's say, starts the second half of the year for the Vikings, looks good, maybe throws last 8 games, 12 touchdowns, 5 picks, and is supporting Justin Jefferson. Does he make it out of the second round of startups next year? Because I don't think he would.
It would be, again, I know we get rookie fever every single offseason, but this is one of those off seasons where I truly think we're talking about a transcendent rookie class that's going to shape the landscape of Dynasty for years to come.
Yeah.
I don't just think this is rookie fever all over again. I didn't feel this way about last year's class. I didn't feel this way about 2022's class. As much as I liked both of those classes respectively, the top running backs in last year's class, top wide receivers in 2022, the class in totality was not near as good as this class.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
And I don't feel that way about 2025's class either. So again, that kind of just proves it's not totally rookie fever that we're getting, swept into. This is a once every 3 to 4 years type of class.
Yeah, by the way, Uno, good luck selling 2 of those tight ends at this point if they fell to you in those spots. 1 out of 2. So now that I did that, A-Rich Watson, JJ, ARSB, Chase Dell, Connor, Eckler, Zeke, McBride, Kittle. 102, 3 2025 first, 2 2026 first, 1 2025 second. He says, would you get Gross and send Tank plus 2 ones for CD or just chill? I definitely would just chill. The reason why I point this out is A, you're absolutely ancient at running back. B, you are also volatile at quarterback. As much as I like A-Rich, he's about the most volatile of the quarterback ones that are valued inside the top 10 at the position.
And then
And I would
Watson's the
say
most
Deshaun
volatile
Watson.
QB2.
Absolutely. So I'm not giving up any type of leverage right now, knowing that we could be looking back next year and maybe A-Rich, instead of being the quarterback 10, is now the quarterback 13 or 14 in the dynasty if he doesn't take a step up. And Deshaun Watson, like he's running the risk that he could be Russell Wilson next year.
Yeah, I think the challenging thing is it's so enticing how good your receiver core is that those top 3 receivers
Yeah.
are going to be 20 plus point per game producers. So this is the type of team that mid-season you evaluate, right? Like if Watson and Richardson are giving you great production at quarterback, and maybe Eckler, but some combination of Connor and Eckler are like giving you RB2 production, and you want to send 2 ones away for Breece Hall or something, like you can do it at that point in time, but I probably wouldn't get too aggressive yet. I think I would wait and see. If you want to go buy low on like an RB2 type to fill out your running back core in the short term, because I think you could compete with this team. Like I don't want to sugarcoat this. I think you could definitely compete with this team.
I think so too.
You're
but I would
pretty
want to
light
be
in age at
backstopped.
running back, like you said. So if you could throw that second out for a, Ramondre Stevenson type or whatever, I think that would fit this build. And then that gives you more luxury to wait and see on the rest of your roster and seeing how it's developing to go buy a stud.
Yeah, like I'm not. This is the type of roster I'm waiting and seeing with at the opening part of the year, because, like you said, it's a host money type of team where there's a lot that can go right if those quarterbacks progress, if those running backs are still relevant. Obviously, you have a strong receiver core, and I mean a top 3 dynasty tight end, and another one that I have ranked into the top 8. Like, there's definitely a path where you can be a top 10, top contender. But I wouldn't overrush it right now, knowing the downside risk at hand and knowing that if you make that move for Tank plus 2 ones for CD, and then guess what? Oh, your quarterbacks aren't pulling their weight and your running backs aren't pulling the weight. Instead of knowing those are 2 contending top of the line first, they may project more so into the middle range. And if you're talking about it, Tank Dell probably worth at least what, a 1 and 2. Would you say, give or take, a 1 and 2 on most markets?
Yeah, I would say that's probably what he's worth.
So then if you're looking at it, it's like, if we're talking about 3 1s and a 2, especially if 2 of those are guaranteed to be mid if your team doesn't progress, for CD, like, as much as I love CD, that's a very, very big package to give up.
That's what she said. Anyways, I'm on the board here. Xavier Legette and Troy Franklin are really interesting to me, but I've said it about Troy Franklin and Xavier Legette already, that this is the point in time where I would probably, in a rookie draft, pivot to the top running backs, and Jonathan Brooks is still on the board, so I'm going to.
At least we're seeing the market warm up to these Benson Brooks. I swear, when we first started doing these mock drafts, like they were consistently
like round 8, 9 that we would be coming off the board.
Like, dude, like we're talking about this draft class. People are going to start to warm up, and I mentioned it to you before we started going live, but like on surface level, if I were to tell you that Ramondre Stevenson was worth about the 207, 208 this year, you were saying like, he should be worth more so of an early to mid second round pick. And I would agree in most draft classes. But then I look at my rankings and I see that I have Keon Coleman ranked as my 18th overall player, Jalen Wright as my 19th overall player. And it's like, the startup pick should be valued higher this year than even some people are willing to admit, because those rookies are going to eventually, after the NFL draft, be selected way higher than they're going in drafts right now. Like, if you're in a startup right now, people might be saying, oh, I'm taking the 205 rookie pick at the 11th round. That feels steep. That's about where it's going to be valued. So get used to it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm on the board again. I think I'm going to take a shot on a rookie wide receiver here. This is such a hard button for me to press because I prefer Xavier Legette to Troy Franklin. And I know one guy is a mess analytically and one guy is nails analytically, but the film and the analytics combined bring me to Xavier Legette over Troy Franklin. So I know that was disgusting as shit to actually press the button on, but let's not pretend that Troy Franklin's a perfect prospect, man. Like, we did his film breakdown. If you guys are unaware, we've been doing film breakdowns for all these top wide receivers for a number of weeks now. We have 8 of them live on flockfantasy.com, and Troy Franklin's is the most recent. We're going to get Xavier Legette's and Keon Coleman's up before the NFL draft as well. Yep. But Troy Franklin's got warts, man. Like, I know his analytics profile is nails, but on film, he's got some major issues that could lead to him being a big time dynasty darling gone wrong. And we see a lot of these over the last couple of years. The dynasty community gets attached to these guys. They don't watch the film. They just look at the numbers. And Troy Franklin strikes me as one of those guys that could be the next, Laviska Shenault, Rondale Moore, guys that the dynasty community loves, but the NFL draft community doesn't love because there's film warts.
Yeah, no, for sure. If you guys want to watch that film breakdown, obviously, if you're a member on Flock, it's posted in there. It's unlisted, so you guys can go watch that. It was pretty fun because we talking about a guy like Troy Franklin. It's hard not to acknowledge the big time pros and the big time cons of his profile. Obviously, the analytics are going to stand out, but in terms of the film itself, there's both high points and low points. I feel like was it Matt Harmon that said it best between Franklin? Like some plays you're watching him and he looks like a top 5 wide receiver in this class. And then other times you're watching him, you're like, oh, well, like he's way less developed than I want him to be at this point.
Yeah, like it's such a hard discussion when you're talking about the finished products in this tier of the class, which would be your Xavier Legette's, your Roman Wilsons, your Ricky Pearsall's, guys like that, versus a guy like Troy Franklin, who on paper projects much better than those guys. But at the same time, he's got so much work to do that you wonder if it's going to be an uphill climb. It's like Terrace Marshall is the last example I could think of, who was a very young prospect coming out, who you were like, hey, if Terrace Marshall can put it all together, he's going to be a great player. And I don't think that was a wrong statement at the time. I think that was a correct statement. It's just that the physical toughness, the ability to win at the catch point, the ball tracking, some of the nuances of the game eluded Terrace Marshall in college, and he never figured them out. And that's possible for Troy Franklin as well.
Well, I want to point it right now because we'll get back obviously in the order of the comments. But Brock asked, what are some of his warts? I heard he has issues with his hands. The main warts that we had, hands, obviously a big time problem. It's even worse.
36% contested catch rate over his career, and he led the class in drops in 2023 and had a 10% drop rate. His hands weren't just an issue; they were an outright liability.
And I mean, like the other points we'll talk to, he cannot ball track worth his life down the field. Like we saw multiple occasions, Bo Nix feeding him perfect passes down the field. He's just unable to locate it over his shoulder that I noticed at times on his film. And we actually pointed out on the breakdown. And the big thing that always gets to me is we see, you know, these tall, fast wide receivers.
You're on the clock, by the way, just FYI.
But the main ones that hit at the next level here, I'm going to take Will Levis because 7'11" is outrageous for him. But the main thing about those type of players, if you're going to have the frame and you're going to have the size and the speed, you need to be able to play through physicality. The best receivers in the league at that frame are the ones that are tough and can play through physical contact. And I didn't really see evidence of that when I was watching Troy Franklin. As soon as people were able to get hands on him, like we're even talking about, for example, in some of the biggest games of the year, especially against Washington, those DBs got their hands on him and basically took him out of the phase of his route.
Yeah, not to mention at the cat, like when the ball's in the air. And again, sometimes your quarterback's doing you no favors, like Adonai Mitchell and Quinn Ewers' relationship this year. Sometimes your quarterback is doing you so many favors that some of the receivers in this class wish they had Bo Nix throwing him the football. And Troy Franklin should have been even better than he was this year. And he was great. He had great production this year. But I'm telling you right now, he should have had another 400 yards and 4 touchdowns this year on top of just how good Bo Nix was. This season should have made Troy Franklin have a nuclear Biletnikoff caliber season. And if Adonai Mitchell was the number 1 receiver for the Oregon Ducks, I think he would have outproduced what Troy Franklin did this year.
Oh, I agree. By the way, I fucking love this team. Like if you're going to make a win now team and you tell me I can get, again, I understand his value's gone off, but I mean, Davante Adams is such a good fit for this team as my wide receiver 4. Like we are cooking. Like I don't usually build competitive teams out of the startup, but I really like how this one transpired.
I would venture a guess to say that there is no better contending wide receiver buy on the market right now than Davante Adams. I think Davante Adams might be the single best competitive team buy at any position in the entire landscape of Dynasty right now. You cannot tell me there's 5 better receivers or 10 better receivers in the NFL still than Davante Adams. Like, I don't care if Gardner Minshew is throwing him the football. Like, I literally don't care if Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell are throwing him the football all year because he literally is going to sleepwalk to 170 targets.
Well, the thing that it comes back to and why I still prefer Adams to, I mean, like, I think him and Evans is pretty close because obviously we saw the Evans ceiling last year from a touchdown standpoint, but specifically Stephon Diggs. I feel like in most rooms, Stephon Diggs is going to be valued higher, especially given the reflection in his redraft market. But I am much more confident in current day Davante Adams, the player, than I am in current day Stephon Diggs, the player. Because I really do feel like we saw evidence of a fall off last year. I don't know how magnified that may be. But basically what I saw is a player that was in the 90th plus percentile in terms of separation metrics, according to Matt Harmon throughout his career. And those metrics fell off a cliff last year. We're talking about a guy that ranked in the 70th percentile, which is still good. He can still be a functional wide receiver too on that Texas offense and obviously get insulated value based off the situation there. But if he keeps showing fall off in terms of Stephon Diggs, the player himself, he's much more volatile, in my opinion, on the market versus Davante Adams. Now, there could be the risk there. Hey, Davante Adams, his year to fall off is this upcoming year. That's obviously the risk you run. But when we saw Davante Adams last year, you mentioned top 5. Probably not top 5 for me, but he's definitely in the top 6 to 8 range at wide receiver, in my opinion, for sure.
Yeah, he's still super, super talented. Also, just quickly
yeah.
back to the Troy Franklin discussion. Brock says Bo Nix stays underrated, dude.
He's good, man.
It's not that Bo Nix needs, like, you don't need to say Bo Nix is a top 3 quarterback in this class to say that he's a great quarterback prospect, because he legit, in my opinion, is a better prospect than Will Levis was last year. And Will Levis had first round buzz all the way up until the end and went to the 33rd pick in the draft. So for me, I look at Bo Nix and I'm like, dude, this guy was an unbelievable college quarterback. He definitely should get buzz towards the latter half of the first round if he isn't already getting it.
Yeah, no, it kind of comes back to the fact there where Bo Nix, like, people are kind of bored of him. Oh, older quarterback, like, he's super accurate. We want to, prop up all the other quarterbacks without giving him his love. It's like, yeah, is he probably in the quarterback 5 to 7 range across the board? Sure. Is listing him as, quarterback 5, quarterback 6, quarterback 7 more so an indictment on him rather than the rest of the class? Absolutely fucking not, because I really do feel like, again, I'm not the biggest Michael Penix guy.
It honestly goes for Penix as well. Penix is a good quarterback prospect too.
I agree.
He's not the other guy.
And I would throw Spencer Rattler probably into that range as well. Like, I was pleasantly surprised when I watched Spencer Rattler. Like, I've seen some people have the take of him being, quarterback 4 or quarterback 5 in this class, and I'm not exactly there with him, but he's my QB7. If somebody wanted to say he's their QB5, like, I wouldn't, get mad at that. I really do feel like all of these top 7 quarterbacks in particular definitely bring something to the table. Now, for me personally, Penix and Rattler are more of those day 2 profiles I want to take a shot on. And I view Bo Nix a little bit ahead of that. But if somebody were to say the opposite, I don't think that's a bad take.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Brock also mentioned, so is he just MVS, Troy Franklin? My comp for him is Jameson Williams, and honestly, I think it's my favorite comp of any comp that I have in the entire class, because
it's so funny.
Exactly like Jameson Williams, man. Like, so much like him. His play style is the same. The issues that I had with Jameson Williams were also ball tracking, playing through physicality, that kind of stuff. But the benefit of Troy Franklin, and why I think he at least has a little bit more hope than Jameson Williams to some degree, is that he's not coming off of a torn ACL that's going to stunt his development. So that's the big difference. But Jameson Williams, I think, was a more dynamic athlete than Troy Franklin on film. So that's kind of the difference between those two guys. But to be honest, it's almost a 1-for-1 comparison for me.
Well, the other factor that I have, and kind of how I view Troy Franklin, he's kind of like, his range of outcomes are on this type of spectrum. The low end, if he never develops the rest of his game, would be like a DJ Chark, which, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2 upside. We saw at points with Jacksonville, like, good, ancillary deep threat to an offense. That's the low floor, right? So would be a guy like Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt showed up a lot more on film than I would have expected when I watched Troy Franklin, especially when you make the similarities with the scheme, how he was kind of orchestrated his deep shots. I see the similarities there. The mid-range of outcome, like you say, would be a guy like Jameson Williams, which we've kind of seen the downside of his career thus far, but we have seen, per target basis, efficiency. Like, if he didn't get hurt, maybe he'd be at a different point of his career. That's kind of like the what if, mid-range of outcome.
I also think high range, his work ethic is not Troy Franklin's work ethic either.
I agree. But the high range of outcomes is if he can show the level of nuance he does on certain points and develop that into a play-by-play basis. Like, are we talking about maybe the next Terry McLaurin? Are we talking maybe the next Calvin Ridley? Because I really do see similarities in terms of these big frame wide receivers with the speed that they have becoming the nuanced route runners on a play-out basis that McLaurin and Calvin Ridley have taken strides to do respectively in their careers.
Yeah, it's really difficult actually to come up with a comparison who wasn't like an older prospect, who wasn't like, because like McLaurin and Ridley, like in our wide receiver prospect model, performed horribly because they were older prospects. They didn't have the same level of market share production at a young age that Troy Franklin has. The comp that I kind of like think his median range of outcomes more aligns with is Will Fuller. because Will
I like
Fuller,
that one too.
it's the same body type, it's the same skill set, but he was a little bit better of a prospect than Terry McLaurin and Calvin Ridley were, even though those guys obviously are better receivers now. Prospect wise, they were definitely worse than Will Fuller was. So I think Will Fuller is a good comp for Troy Franklin's like median range of outcomes. And again, for what it's worth, I think Jamison Williams was a good prospect. Just the injury and the fact that he's a bit of a knucklehead have, shown why he hasn't been able to get on the field consistently for Detroit. And it's not like his career is over. He could still get better. I just think that if you drafted him in a rookie draft, you're probably pissed.
It's so funny because I'm like looking back on Will Fuller's profile, and it's like obviously we knew this at the time, but it's just funny because obviously that name hasn't been relevant since 2020. This is 2020 when Deshaun had that big year, but like the last time we saw that guy fully healthy, like he had 880 yards and 8 touchdowns in 11 games played that year. And that was the year Deshaun Watson had like 33 touchdowns. Like this was like at his peak of his, I want to say he finished 3rd or 4th in MVP voting that year. Like that was like the prime of both their careers. And obviously with Will Fuller since then, I don't know, it was like a finger issue and then he retired. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like how old do you think Will Fuller is? Can you garner a guess right now? How old?
He was drafted in 2016. He's probably the same. He's probably younger than Tyreek Hill, who was also drafted in 2016. He's probably 28 or 29 years old. You're on the clock, by the way.
He's 27 right now.
Wow. That's really young.
I just thought that was a crazy stat. So I am on the clock here. Wide receivers. I don't hate Marquise Brown at this spot either, especially knowing that I'm a competitive build. Are there any quarterbacks left? I mean, Matthew Stafford is a nice pick, but I should be able to get him to fall back. And then at running back, I can wait. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with a receiver or tight end here. You know what? I also really like the value of Ingram as a competitive team, and I really do feel like after him, there's a little bit of a fall off from competitive tight ends, so I will take him here, especially in a competitive build.
Yeah, it's definitely good. This is a fun question here. Actually, we didn't get to this one here. So traded CJ Stroud in the 208 for his 2025 first. He was the 105 this year. Mike Evans in the 207, 1 QB league. Don't worry. Okay. So Stroud in the 208 for a first of an early to mid first team.
Mike Evans
in the 207. In a one quarterback league, I actually still think I would prefer Stroud, to be honest, the Stroud side of this deal, but I don't think it's over. If that first ends up being a top 5 pick next year, it'll probably be a different discussion, but I still think even in a one quarterback league, Stroud should be a top 3 round starter pick.
I mean, just knowing that you have Mahomes and AR5 and knowing that the overall value at the position is going to be suppressed in the market, I don't mind.
I disagree because Stroud just got Stephon Diggs. I think he has a very liquid market right now, even in a one quarterback league.
Fair. I mean, he could, but I'm assuming that he probably did his due diligence to try to trade him before. Then that was probably the best.
Yeah. Okay. If you looked around and nobody wanted CJ Stroud, fine, I accept this deal. But to me, I think that knowing that Stroud was heavy on the market at the time that you made this, I think that you probably should have gotten more in exchange for him. But regardless, I think it's probably fine if your league market just does not value quarterbacks at all in a one quarterback league, which is definitely the case in a lot of one QBs.
For sure. We got a super chat also from Jeff. Appreciate that. He says, I have 17 consecutive picks and 20. Oh my God. What? He's got the 108 to the 212.
Buddy, I hope you need wide receivers. I hope your roster needs wide receivers because you're going to probably end up with 10 of them, if not more.
Start 10 league. There's no shot I'm making 17 picks. Like maximum here, I'm making 8 of those picks. Like you're saying, hey, can 108 plus 208 get me up to 107? Like I'm just making incremental moves up because there's no need to take all those rookie picks.
I don't know, man. This is a good deep class. If you wanted to
start
make
10,
14 of these picks or something, like I'd be fine with it.
Start 10 though, bro. Like if it was a start 12, 13,
sure, definitely. Yeah, take your 108 plus 202 and 204 and see if you can get up to 105. You know what I mean? Like try and make moves up the board if you can. But regardless, I mean, you're going to have a massive cluster of wide receivers. I've been of the attitude that you're probably going to hit on half of those guys in that area of the draft, and you'll end up with some studs, but you'll probably end up with some guys that maybe didn't hit the he has 4 players and no starters, dude. Like, just hammer out wide receivers, and you pretty much have the entire running back class to your your fucking arsenal as well. Like, the whole running back class is going to go where you're picking.
Yeah. By the way, this would be interesting. Well, okay, opportunity bundle. Would you rather have Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Penix or Jaden Daniels and Ladd McConkey?
Well, first of all, it's going to be Drake May.
Okay, but let's just say Drake May went
going to.
Overall.
I think it's a foregone conclusion.
But let's just say hypothetically, obviously, if it's Drake May in that question,
I think the realistic scenario is Drake.
Okay, but hypothetically, let's say Drake went second overall. Would you rather have Jaden Daniels and Ladd McConkey or Marvin Harrison and Michael Penix?
Can I change my answer to Bo Nix?
Sure.
Can I have Bo Nix instead of Penix? Because then I would prefer Marvin and Bo Nix.
I would too. I would too. But let's just say Bo Nix goes to the Broncos in the first round. Like it has to be Penix or Rattler.
Again, here's the thing: it's going to be Drake May that they're picking, not Jaden Daniels.
Okay, but we're playing a hypothetical, Bush. Just
also, I'm going to take Justin Fields here. Give me the upside swing at 10-11.
Dude, I also really like getting Stafford at the 10-2 in a competitive team, especially knowing Will Levis, my QB2.
Not the biggest fan of this team, I'm not going to lie, but I do have a very young roster,
Dude,
which I don't mind.
Team?
Yeah. Your team looks a lot better. I probably should have gone competitive with that decision point that I had with the Gibbs, AJ Brown. If I had started Patrick Mahomes, Jahmyr Gibbs, AJ Brown, and then built out a competitive roster, I'd feel a lot better about this one. So bit of a throw on my part, but this is why we do mock drafts, right? I wouldn't have done this in a real draft, for full disclosure.
For real. Okay. Pitts or Kincaid? This is a cool question. I am still Kyle Pitts all the way. I mean, at the end of the day, we're just going to find out this year. Is Arthur Smith the problem? Which I do feel like Arthur Smith was the problem. And B, what are we going to see with Kyle Pitts with actual good quarterback play? It's kind of funny because
these are the exact same guess, by the way. It's like, are they good? Both of these tight ends, are they good?
Well, the thing is I think Kyle Pitts is good. And he got limited by his situation. With Dalton Kincaid, I don't know if he's good, but I know the situation is. But the way I'm projecting is I think the Falcon situation now will be good, and we're going to see the better player, Kyle Pitts, in my opinion, thrive in that situation. I mean, we're still talking about a guy that had 1,000 yards as a rookie tight end. Like, I don't think that player is just gone. Like, he was dealing with some injuries, obviously the situation. Like, it does kind of feel like copium that you have to make a bunch of excuses on his profile, but I really do feel like his context is needed. Like, dude, Kyle Pitts is not even 24 years old yet. He's younger than Dalton Kincaid by a year.
Yeah, no, that's pretty insane when you contextualize it. But then again, it's like even if Kyle Pitts is 10% better as a player than Dalton Kincaid,
the situation,
Dalton Kincaid would outproduce him in fantasy on the Buffalo Bills offense.
Yeah. So, like, it keeps coming back to the fact of what you value. I think Kyle Pitts can be the 1B receiver in this offense. And although we expect Kincaid to potentially be that for the Bills, I have more conviction that Kyle Pitts 1B is going to be more valuable than assuming the Bills bring in a wide receiver, Dalton Kincaid's 1B or 2. Because I really do think Kyle Pitts and Drake London, like receiver-wise, like should dominate targets on this offense.
So here's the crazy thing, though, about this question is that even though Kincaid is older than Kyle Pitts is, which is a wild statement, Kincaid is like produced as well in one NFL season as Pitts has produced over the course of his 3 NFL seasons. So
fair, but his first year was better than
there, and with Gabe Davis there.
His first year was
as
better
a rookie
than
tight end.
His first year was better than Kincaid's, though, I would say.
It was better than Kincaid's, but he's also been in the NFL 3 seasons. So we know way more about him than Kincaid.
That's the complete risk here. It's like Pitts, I think, is the more volatile asset because if he has a bad year this upcoming year, he's more volatile to fall in the market. Whereas if Kincaid has, a bad or mediocre year this year,
he's people second-year tight end. People would make excuses for him.
Even though it's so weird because he's literally older than Pitts. So if we're giving him the excuse,
both of these guys honestly might be the answer. I actually kind of like both of them, to be honest.
I do too. Like it's funny because it's like they're both volatile and both can end up being at the top of the position. It's just, it depends on who you believe in more. Like, honestly, like this is a really interesting question. Like I will always say Kyle Pitts in this question because I do think he's a better both prospect coming in and better player at this point in their careers and is younger. But like there is no wrong answer. It just depends on your comfort level of both. Now, with that being said, I'm on the clock here. I believe Nick Chubb would be my next rated running back on a contending team as my RB3 after McCaffrey and Barkley. I don't mind making that move. Yeah. Now, Nick Chubb's somebody I definitely have been warming up to a lot. Because, like, assuming he's healthy, there's no way he doesn't smash this year.
Yeah, dude. Like, again, it's tough when you got that much volume under your career and you're coming off a torn ACL. But, like, we're talking about, like, a borderline Hall of Famer.
Easy Hall of Famer from a talent standpoint.
Yeah, in terms of like, year over year consistency and efficiency. I mean, if we just had a 4-year window where Nick Chubb was getting all of the work for the Browns, let's say on his rookie contract, for example, they were feeding him all of the work, his numbers would look a lot better. And he would have had probably 3 or 4 top 5 fantasy seasons over that period of time. So It sucks that they limited him, but at the same time, maybe that's why he could play well into his late 20s and early 30s potentially. Like, would it shock any of us if Nick Chubb was still on the field at 32 years old, cranking out 1,000 yards? Like, it honestly wouldn't really shock me. Like, I know that's a pretty bold statement because that doesn't happen nowadays at running back. But if anybody is going to be the Frank Gore of this generation, I think Nick Chubb is the type of guy who could be it.
No, I agree. And the other factor I'll point to is there's a big difference taking that valuation in the top 10 rounds of your startup when 205 or earlier are probably still on the board in terms of draft liquidity. But once you're getting into the late second or early third round area, like I'm kind of evaluating it now. It's like, yes, on the market, could there be the fact that Nick Chubb is only worth a third next year? Sure. But if he's giving you the production, especially in a competitive team, you're accepting that, 20% value loss inherently, assuming the production value he gives you is going to negate that 20% value loss.
Yeah, it's like 2 years ago, I was waxing poetic about these older running backs and selling them off your dynasty teams. Like, dog,
but their value was so much higher.
A third or a fourth round startup pick 2 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I was saying it, not because I didn't think he would produce. It's like he has to produce or he's going to be useless. And he did produce, and he still lost a lot of value as a result.
Yeah, 100%. So
even if he didn't get hurt, like, where is Nick Chubb going in a startup? Let's say he didn't get hurt. He had a mid RB1 season or a low end RB1 season this year.
I mean, DeAndre Swift went at the 8-7, so probably around that range.
Yeah, like I'm looking at it right now. I think he would go.
He'd go ahead of Henry. I would
say the range of where Derrick Henry went, 9-12.
I think
maybe a little bit sooner.
Yeah, like I personally, even after the ACL, still prefer Chubb right now to Henry.
Yeah, like I think DeAndre Swift area, like 8th, 9th round is a good middle ground. If he had not torn his ACL and had another Nick Chubb-like season, that's probably what we're talking about. Is he would have been an 8th, 9th round starter pick. And then he did get hurt, obviously, which is why he lost a lot of value. But he's actually becoming a value, in my opinion, given how much value he lost.
Well, I'll ask you this one. Straight up, Nick Chubb does not get hurt. Straight up, are you taking Nick Chubb for a contender, or are you taking Stephon Diggs for a contender? Assuming, let's just say it's a 3 wide receiver, 2 flex league.
In a PPR league, I would probably take. I'd probably take.
But that's
Diggs.
About the range for you, right?
Yeah.
So
I would probably take Diggs. I would prefer him to Keenan Allen, Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson.
Easily,
though, to be honest, I think that's probably the range we're talking about. I probably should have drafted him in our startup that we're in right now. I'm kind of regretting not. I passed on him. Yeah, I passed on him.
Because I took Ramondre and I contemplated taking Nick Chubb, but since I'm not contending this year, I couldn't take both those running backs. But him and Ramondre were the guys I'm like, we're in the 11th round. Like, this is really good value on these guys. And I mean, Nick Chubb ended up falling to the 13-2 in our draft because I didn't pick any time before that.
Yeah, I'm 100%
really
going to. I'm gonna have to go send out an offer because I think I may have fucked up with my last pick.
You're chilling. Did you? Yeah, we processed it. Can we set trades?
I just did.
Okay.
Also, Drew asked Wilson plus what equals Bijan. I mean, Garrett
why
Wilson
would Garrett Wilson
equals Bijan to me?
What? I would rather have Garrett Wilson straight up.
I wouldn't. I'd rather
very easily. Give me Garrett Wilson, bro. The guy.
One guy is a clear advantage at his position. I'm taking Bijan over Wilson.
I'm not doing that, brother. Especially in any 3 wide receiver start leagues, I'm taking the receiver every single time.
Bijan's a 22-year-old running back with legendary upside. Garrett Wilson, as much as I love him, doesn't have that upside.
Garrett Wilson's a 23-year-old wide receiver with, in my opinion, top 5 upside as well.
That's not worth as much as a legendary running back. We know that.
I think it is. Because, I mean, even if he's a legendary season this year, is he going to be valued more than CeeDee Lamb?
Well, we're not talking about CeeDee Lamb. We're talking about
But I think Garrett Wilson could get to that range.
He would be also. He would be a top 6-7 overall starter pick if he had a legendary season.
No shot of running backs getting back up that high.
He should. If Bijan has a 24 point per game season at 22 years old, he should be absolutely a top 8 starter pick. I know it's a running back, but that's an advantage at that position that does not exist.
But bro, we're projecting the market, and I'm projecting the market right now. The market's going to be much more favorable for Garrett Wilson than it will be Bijan Robinson. So there should not be a plus. If you wanted to do this straight up, that's one thing. I'm not adding on to Garrett Wilson, who I already prefer as an asset straight up in a startup draft.
That's fine. If you say you prefer Garrett Wilson and it's an even trade, that's fair. But to me, I prefer Bijan Robinson. And I would say this too, if it was Gibbs or Breece Hall, for what it's worth. I would say it's also a second of difference. I prefer those 3 running backs. Me and you differ on this, but I value them way higher than the rest of the running back position, to the point that I am okay with taking them in the mid-second round, the early second round of a startup.
I can't get on board with the early second. Mid second is about where I'd get. For reference, I have Bijan ranked as the 209. He's right after Garrett, Puka, Drake, and Trevor Lawrence for me. That's the range.
Yeah. Again, I just
I would
I
rank him
think
over
you're
Malik.
undervaluing the advantage of a 3 to 4 year RB1 projection because they're simply they don't exist in Dynasty outside of those three guys.
I'm not, but I would rather trade on the market for one of those guys than take it in the startup because I already know on the market Garrett Wilson, for the most part, the Garrett Wilson manager will last for more than the Bijan Robinson manager would. 100%.
Yeah, that's fair. I actually can't stand this team. I'm not going to lie. I really hate it.
I like it.
It's all just like young receivers and like so much risk. Like, don't draft a team like this. But again, this is a mock draft. I really don't like this team at all, though.
Yeah, we're having a good time. Where did we leave off in terms of Okay, here
I got it.
Kincaid
Henry says Kincaid ADP in a startup Superflex FFPC. That's tight end premium formats, 4th round. That's. I mean, again, it's tight end premium, so I understand why the tight end's elevated. But this is a tight end premium draft, and he went in the 6th round, which I think is a little bit more appropriate. Yeah. Ryan, in a Dynasty Superflex league, I traded Garrett Wilson for Diggs and Kamara. Dude, you got smoked. That's awful. You got absolutely smoked.
Bro, that is awful. I'm not like we're not here to sugarcoat it, man. Like this is horrific.
Yeah, Garrett's gonna. First of all, Garrett Wilson will outscore Diggs this year by a lot, in my opinion.
By a lot. He might outscore Diggs and Kamara.
Even if Diggs and Garrett are close in scoring, and Kamara gives you RB2 value or something, by next year, I mean, already we're talking about Diggs is an 8th round starter pick in this draft. Has Kamara even gone yet? Kamara went 10th round. Yeah, he went. So you got an 8th and a 10th round pick for the 210 in this draft.
That's awful. I'm not gonna lie.
You got smoked, dude. I'm not gonna lie. You got absolutely smoked.
Like, we got to keep it honest with you guys. We're not just gonna say every deal is fucking good for you. Like, if you got bent over and taken to the woodshed and taught a lesson, like, we'll tell you, because that's exactly what's the case here.
Great, maybe a good redraft trade, but in Dynasty, you got hosed.
Would you accept? You would probably accept.
No, I wouldn't accept that in redraft, but it's better in redraft at least.
That's what I'm saying. It's like even in redraft, it's like I'm probably not even taking that.
Yeah, I mean, in redraft, the ADP of those 3 players is like we're talking about an early 2nd rounder for Garrett Wilson, a 4th, 5th rounder for Stephon Diggs, and Kamara's probably a dead zone 6th, 7th round running back.
Yeah, no, that's a yikes. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
we trade the 101 for Achane, Dell in an early to mid 2025 first 12-team Superflex start 10.
I wouldn't.
And a start 10 especially. Give me Caleb for sure. Yeah. I think he wants a second back. That makes sense, Trenton. That's something I've been confused about in this space. Is 1.5 tight end premium usually mean that they have only 0.5 more PPR than other cast, or 1.5 more? Big difference. If it's a 1.5, usually what I equate it to in my brain is 1.5 equals 1.5x whatever your scoring settings are. So theoretically, in a full PPR, a 1.5 tight end premium would mean 1.5 points per reception. But if it was like a 2 PPR league, that would be what's the difference there? 3 PPR?
Yeah. No, I think when people say 1.5 tight end premium, I just assume they mean it's a full PPR with a half tight.
Yeah. Like I view it as like X, like times.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like unless someone says 2 tight end premium, I assume it's like a 2 tight end premium could either be a half PPR that's full to tight ends or a full PPR to regular receivers and then a 2 tight end premium.
Hey guys, what's up, Brock? What's up?
What's good, fellas? What's going on? In the leagues I run, all my startups were random draws every round. It was truly fair. Tyreek said he would play 2 more years. Yes, Henry, but he said that last offseason.
Yep. Finished his contract.
2 more years would indicate that this is his last year.
Actually, he has 3 years left on his contract. So who would be at the 107? Oh, like so Roma Dunze would go 106. Brock Bowers would be 107. Or
yeah, Brock Bowers would I think Brock Bowers will end up being the consensus 107 in non-tight end premium and even in half tight end premium leagues, to be honest. And again, you could make the argument that like, oh, these people are stupid taking Roma Dunze over Brock Bowers because in a tight end premium format, just give me the tight end who's going to be top 3 at his position. But Roma Odunze is just simply that good, man. It's not.
He's awesome.
It's not that I don't think Brock Bowers is a worthwhile pick, and I'm not excited to take him with all my 107s if Odunze goes ahead of him. It's just that in a lot of the leagues I have 107, I was hoping to get a wide receiver, and Brock Bowers is going to be the guy on the board. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is selling the Brock Bowers pick for veteran wide receivers or trading down in the rookie draft and getting a haul for it.
Tyreek base salary is 2026 is 43 million. He really walking away from that? I mean, I don't know, man. If he wants to go shoot some pornos with some mottos, like I don't blame him.
Well, he said, I'm going for 10. Hill said, I'm going to finish out this contract with the Dolphins, and then I'm going to call it quits. He's like, if he'd be calling it quits following the 2025 season. 10 seasons would be 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Yeah, actually, you'd be right. That would be the 2025 season. So maybe he is going to play 2 more years after this, but he said last year that he wanted to play 2 more years. That was the direct quote that he said also. So I don't know. Maybe he's going to play 24 and 25. He's definitely not fallen off by any stretch of the imagination. And he probably knows that he has a gold jacket chance as well, too. So,
yeah. Who has the higher ceiling, Zay Flowers or Nico Collins? This is very easily Nico Collins, in my opinion.
Yeah, higher ceiling Nico Collins. I actually just think he's the better projection all around. But
he's a better player.
Zay Flowers is still pretty solid as well.
Like, real talk, bro. Like, I keep coming to it, and like I almost took Nico Collins in our startup draft too. Like, I'm coming back to it, bro. Like, Nico Collins should not be falling on the market that some people project. Like, he should still be, in my opinion, a top 15 dynasty receiver, because I don't think people
moved him down like 2 spots in my startup rankings.
And that's fine.
But like, I moved him down, I think, below DJ Moore and somebody else. I can't remember who the other person was.
Yeah, like
maybe Devontae Smith, I think, was the other guy.
Yeah, like a Waddle, maybe something like that.
Yeah, like that's the difference in Nico Collins' value with Diggs coming in, because it does impact his immediacy of his value. But what I think is going to happen is you have CJ Stroud on a rookie contract. Stephon Diggs is only going to be in Houston for 1 year, probably. Nico's probably going to get a big contract from the Texans after this year.
I'd agree.
If he has another great season.
He's a stud, bro.
Yeah.
So we're talking about real life NFL talent.
We don't want him going anywhere else, because him and Stroud have a good connection and he's a great quarterback and you want him to stay there. It muddies the waters a little bit, because if he doesn't have as good of a season this year with Diggs there, then maybe the Texans just franchise tag him instead of paying him or whatever. But I'm hoping that Nico's just good enough, and Diggs maybe has lost a little bit of a step to the point that Nico's going to be the downfield guy. He's going to play the Brandon Ayuk role of this 49ers scheme or whatever. He's going to get the 18.5 yards per reception numbers and the high PFF grade and the yards per route run and all the stuff that we want to see from him. And he just gets a big, $27-28 million per year contract from the Texans.
For sure. T. Higgins' value has fallen like a rock from last
year. Shouldn't have, to be honest. I think he's a huge value in drafts right now.
I think so too. Hey guys, hope all is well. My league already gave out draft order for redraft league, and we can draft, pick, trade, and I currently have picks 3 and 4 overall. Who would you target with those picks? Thanks. Is it straight up redraft?
Yeah. So, okay, I've had a consult with Brandon before about this, and his league trades like nobody's business in terms of their redraft league. And last year, I think he ended up having like 5 picks in the first 2 rounds or something, because he just sold all of his mid-round picks and just went for all studs. So I remember this 3 and 4 overall in redraft. Who are you taking? Let's say, let's just say
first and second.
Your top 4 ranked players be?
Well, for starters, obviously, who goes first and second is
just rank your top 4 then.
But I think there's context though, because I would say like CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill.
You're guaranteed to get one of them if you rank your top 4.
I guess. Okay, so top 4. I mean, it's Christian McCaffrey. I think at 1. For me, I'd have CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, given the age complex potentially being at fact there. I would just rather take the cleaner projection with the younger player. And that 4th overall, it's like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall. Like, those are probably the main considerations. Amon St. Brown would be in that discussion to that tier. Like, I think 4 to like 8, you can make the case of any one of them being 4. For E's sake, I would personally lean if I can get this Lamb and Jamar Chase. But like the bundles that you want, like, just take your most favorable player in that range. I really don't see much of a difference in the 4 to 8 area.
Yeah, no, it'd be nice to walk out of the first round with a running back and a wide receiver.
But that's 2, right?
I wouldn't mind grabbing, Lamb at 3 and Bijan at 4 or whatever. I think that's fine.
Yeah. Like, if it's a 3 wide receiver, 2 flex full PPR, maybe you just take the 2 anchor receivers and be done with it. But like, if it's a 2-2-1 setup, then just take the running back and the receiver and dominate both spots.
You know what's scaring the shit out of me, Danny? Were we just 1 year early on Bijan RB1 season? Like, I'm really scared.
He's going to be ranked. He's going to be ranked inside my top 5.
I'm going to rank Christian McCaffrey 1.
Yeah.
But were we a year early on it? You know what I mean? Like, I'm dude, what if the legendary Bijan season is coming and I'm going to rank Christian McCaffrey RB1 because I'm the most gutless human on earth and I got flamed for having Bijan RB1 last year.
Bro, we were a year early on Kelsey. We will be a year early on Christian McCaffrey. Book it.
Dude,
We were a year early on Kelsey. We're
scared.
going to be a year
I'm
early
scared
on
this is the year that McCaffrey lets everybody down when all of the age truthers are like, fuck it, I'm throwing out my age model for Christian McCaffrey and Christian McCaffrey alone, and he's going to suffer a hamstring pull in week 2, and Bijan's going to go for 25 points per game, and I'm going to literally hate myself.
That's just 100% what's going to happen.
I know.
You
That's
know
why
that,
I'm like, but
It's
are we going
100%
to,
what's
like,
gonna happen.
fast forward to
But the thing
August
is,
30th, 2024, are we going to have Christian McCaffrey RB1?
The problem with doing that, Bush, is if we don't rank McCaffrey 1 and he does exactly what he did this year.
I know, dude. That's why I'm so distraught with this, because the projection, you can't predict injuries. I'm going to rank Christian McCaffrey RB1, and I'm going to stick to that. But if it plays out that he wears down from the all the touches he's had over the course of his career, and the exact scenario that we played out last year plays out in 2024, I'm going to be annoyed.
Bush, I found the solution. Rank CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill as the 1-2 overall player. Rank CMC as the 3rd overall player. Bijan Robinson as the 4th overall player. That way, when it happens, you can.
I think just being higher on Bijan in general on the market will result in you having a lot of Bijan.
Agreed.
So I think that's fine. It's like, okay, hopefully I don't get any 101s where I have to make this decision, and I'll just take Bijan at 4.
Yeah, dude. Like, I don't want 101 this year, to be honest, because if I have my 101s, I'm just trading them for the 103 spots, because I'm just saying, hey, you're going to take McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill. Give me CeeDee Lamb at the 3 spot, because I feel great about that projection.
Dude, I'm also such a fucking coward to the point that I you know how many times I've wanted 101, 102 in my redraft league, with my home league with my buddies? The highest I've ever picked is 4 in 8 years or 9 years of being in this league. I know this is the year I'm going to get the 101. I can sense it.
Josh gonna shit on you. I mean, to be fair, I'd rather have the 101 than the 109.
Yes, but like, what if this is the year I get 101 and I'm wrestling with the idea of picking McCaffrey all offseason?
Dude, I know you're gonna gal-brain yourself into taking CeeDee Lamb at 101. I already can foresee that.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm going to take McCaffrey if he's there and I get the 101. But let's just hope and pray that I just get 104 or 105 and I can just take Bijan.
And when we're talking about fun hypotheticals, let's say you got drafted the 102 and McCaffrey went 1. Are you taking Hill or are you taking Lamb for the exact reason why you would take Bijan versus McCaffrey?
What, that Hill could fall off?
That Hill's the older player, and technically by a total points basis,
I don't
outproduced him last year.
I don't view Hill and McCaffrey the same because they're wide receiver versus running back.
Fair.
I Hill to me is the 102 in drafts. I don't really give shit.
I mean, like point per game wise, like if you actually look, Lamb and him like that.
Oh no, they were. They're great. And when I do the risk ratings like I did last year, like Lamb is, spoiler alert, like he was the least risk of, he was the most, if you're the most risk averse drafter in the world, you should draft CeeDee Lamb last year is what I said. And the same applies for CeeDee Lamb this year. Like he will be one of the easiest, like don't fuck up your first round picks in fantasy this year.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Would you get gross and said tank plus 2 firsts for CD or just chill?
Oh yeah, we already
talked about that. I would, given the construction of his team, we talked about probably just chilling there.
Yeah, I was trying to get you to say some positive stuff about.
I love CeeDee Lamb. He's definitely going to be a top 5 player for me in terms of redraft. He'll probably be my 102 or my 103. But I'm going to be quite excited about those running backs this year in redraft, man. Like I actually would not mind walking out of the first round with a running back this year.
Bro, like I'm looking at the complexion of the wide receiver, like the tiers that you're going to be operating, and like Lamb and Hill, obviously on a point per game basis, like they both cleared over 23 points per game last year on PPR.
Yeah,
like that's absurd. And then after that, it's like as good as Amon-Ra was, 20.7 is very good, but like there's a big difference between 23 versus 20.7. So, like, I really do feel like the 2 or the 3 pick is the way to go next year if you have your choice of, like, where you want to pick because of how advantageous Hill and Lamb are and how concretely good we could expect their offenses to be.
Yeah, no, they're such easy projections, man. Like, it's hard not to take them really, really high in fantasy next year.
For sure. We got a couple more comments we can rip through.
Yeah, Miguel, let's go through some more comments for a few minutes. I'm just going to skim through and pick out the good ones. Is it wrong to say Herbert's a bit overrated? In Dynasty, yes. In redraft, if you want to fade him, that's fine. To me, I think him losing Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and being run heavy, it's going to factor in, but they're not going to be Michigan, dude. Like they're going to throw the ball more than Michigan threw the ball. It's college football. They have the best team in the country. Of course they were run heavy.
Are we forgetting the fact that when Jim Harbaugh coached at Stanford, he had Andrew Luck operating a low volume system? Like,
Yeah, like it's going to be
there's a
lower
difference between
volume than the Chargers
NFL.
have been
Yeah.
for sure, but it's going to be
No,
like
no.
middle of the road in the NFL because he still has an elite quarterback.
I'm arguing it the other side. I think that college game versus NFL game, if Jim Harbaugh knows in college he can run the ball despite having an elite quarterback, that's one thing. We even saw when he went to San Francisco, they threw the ball a lot more than he did during his Stanford tenure.
Yeah.
With Alex Smith.
Yeah, exactly. Brock said, would you be willing to give up 111 and 112 to move for Romo Dunze at 105? See, I would say it's easy to just say, yes, go get Romo Dunze. But at the same time, like 111 and 112, I feel quite good that you're going to get like Xavier Worthy, Lad McConkey there. And I feel pretty good about both of those prospects. I would say in a shallow league where you need studs, I'm fine with it. Can you get, even if it's, a regular run of the mill league, can you get a 2 back on top of 105? Like even if it's in 2026 or 2025, just to insulate this trade a little bit. But regardless, I think I'm fine doing it if you just need the stud.
Yeah. By the way, for reference, like we're still talking about with Alex Smith, who is not remotely the type of quarterback that obviously Justin Herbert is. He threw the ball 445 times in 16 games back in 2011, their best year with Harbaugh under the helm, right? So if I'm looking at it, it's like 445. Did you equate that across a 17 game pace? That would be about what, 470 pass attempts, and that was happening in 2011 with Alex Smith as his quarterback.
Yeah, I think the only real comparable you have is Luck, to be honest.
Luck is
like, even though it was college versus the NFL, it's like when you have an elite quarterback, you're not going to run the most run heavy offense in the league. Even if you're a run heavy offense, quote unquote, you're like 24th or 20th in the league in pass attempts.
I mean, yeah, no, 100%.
Miguel says, who is your favorite between these wide receivers that'll probably go in the 3rd round of fantasy drafts? My favorites there are the 2 Washington receivers, Jalen McMillan and Jalen Polk, but I actually really like Javon Baker also. Burton is the one guy that I'm not super high on just because I think the film was decent. I think he has some redeeming qualities, but I actually just think this guy's a complete head case, to be honest. Like I really don't want Jermaine, but there's too much smoke about him being having attitude problems and stuff like that I think it's going to affect his draft capital. If he goes around 2 of the NFL draft, it'll throw a wrench in that because obviously that means maybe a team doesn't think he's a huge head case. But I actually would venture a guess to say it's more likely he goes undrafted than in round 2.
Like, honest to God, if you had to put his draft over under right now, and I set it at the 125th overall pick, are you taking?
I would take the over on that because I think the NFL probably likes him as like a 3rd rounder or whatever. But I am very concerned.
So you take the under,
go really late in the draft.
You mean you take the under then, right? Like he goes the under, whatever. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, because like right now I have him. So my comp, it's funny because we both took Giants wide receivers as our comp for him. You had Jalen Hyatt, I had Darius Slayton, which. In spurts and best ball leagues, like some utility.
Darius Slayton had a season of 12 points per game. That's not bad.
It's not bad. I mean, if Jermaine Burton gave you 12 points per game at one point, I would be considering that's your wide receiver 22 in the class for me and you respectively. Like that would be a pretty big win.
Yeah, but I think McMillan has like legit PPR 100 target slot receiver upside to the tune of a Tyler Boyd or even a JSN, who our comp is for Jalen McMillan. I think Jalen Polk has big slot upside just the same way, honestly, like Tyler Boyd type of guy there. And then also Rashee Rice was my comp for Jalen Polk. And then with Javon Baker, I think he's really raw, but I actually really like his projection to do the hard things well, which is the downfield stuff, the contested catch ability. Our buddy Angelo's really high on his movement ability too. Like just for the size of receiver that he is, he thinks he has a really wide frame and arm length too. He has like he has the frame and the wingspan of a 6'6" receiver, even though he's only like 6'2".
Javon Baker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His wingspan is ridiculously large for his height, apparently.
So for reference, I ended up being higher, obviously, respectively on Baker.
I still like him. I have him like wide receiver 14 or 15, but I still actually really like him.
Yeah, like so for reference, like he graded relatively close to the top 12 for me. Actually, he's my wide receiver 12. My 11 actually ended up being Jalen McMillan, who I gave, let me see the difference in grade here, because I do have him a little bit higher. Okay. I gave McMillan an 80. I gave Javon Baker a 78.5, and that's the difference between wide receiver 12 and 11 for me. For reference, the difference between McMillan, my 11, and my wide receiver 10, which is Troy Franklin, is 80 to 81. So, like, the difference between Baker to McMillan and then McMillan to Franklin is, like, very, very close for me.
Yeah, like I think all the guys that I have in that cluster, McMillan, Polk, Malik Washington, Javon Baker, Tez Walker, Malachi Corley, they're all guys I feel quite good about, especially knowing that you're going to get a lot of them in like the third rounds of rookie drafts. Those guys are like not typical third round of rookie draft type of wide receiver prospects. Like
Agreed.
they would have probably all been like mid second, Jaden Reed area type of guys last year.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, I prefer. If I had to ask you this one, so for reference, Polk is my 13, Baker my 12, my 14 right now is, if I scroll down, I think I probably have Roman. Okay, so Roman and Malik Washington. So let's just say Polk is my 13.
The other guy I forgot to mention. Same with Pearsall too. Like all of those guys are all
very similar
pretty
range
solid projections. And the reason I built this wide receiver model is to sort through these fucking tiers of wide receivers because there's so many guys that project decently.
So let's talk about Polk, right? Because we both have him. You have him 12. I have him 13. Jonathan Mingo was like what? Wide receiver 5 off the board in a lot of rookie drafts last year?
Yeah.
Like I would take Polk's profile over Mingo's every single time.
Dude,
including the
Ricky
film
Pearsall's
analysis
profile over Jonathan
Easily.
Mingo's. And Ricky Pearsall is like my wide receiver 17.
Dude, so Pearsall's he's actually your 19. Pearsall's my 16.
I gotta rewatch him. I'll probably end up moving him up after the perception stuff came out.
Like realistically, yeah, because I have I think I have too high of a grade on the route running of Roman, especially with the context now of the reception perception data. Like if I were to say, so again, right now Roman's my 14, my 15 would be Malik Washington, and my 16 would be Ricky Pearsall. Like if I had to guess, like Roman would probably end up being my 16 once I rewatch these guys, and Pearsall, Malik would be 14, 15 respectively, probably in that order. Because like I don't think I gave Pearsall enough credit for the route running, because I think I gave him a 13, and I mean 87th percentile against man, and what he was like relatively decent against zone and press too, right?
Yeah, no, he was really solid. And for what it's worth too, before the draft happens, we're going to do a full rankings video on wide receivers, quarterbacks, and running backs. That'll probably be either this week, later in the week, or the week of the draft, early in the week. So if you guys are curious, like we'll probably go through like our top 15 or top 20 receivers. It'll be a longer video, but we haven't actually done this one time. Yeah, we haven't gone through our top receivers outside of the flock video we did back in January.
Yeah.
And we've watched these guys, we've graded these guys. So we know quite a bit about their profiles at this point. By then we'll know how they performed in the prospect model as well. So it should be a lot of fun. We'll probably do that next week. And right after me and Danny hop off of this live stream, we're planning out our schedule for the next, 2 weeks leading up to the draft. And that will be something that we have to end up doing. But anyways, appreciate you guys for sticking around. Sorry
if we didn't want to
get to your questions. What's going on?
One thing we got to do quick. I did promise during that draft that we'd kind of give the people a look at what our startup draft is looking like.
So okay. Yeah. Quick.
5 minutes.
Let's end this at the 1:30 mark if we can, though.
Yeah, not even, bro. Probably 125 mark, to be honest.
Okay. So if you want to pull that up and share your screen, then we can do that. I'll answer a couple questions that we had on the board here in the meantime. Theo says Bowers or Kincaid in Dynasty. I prefer Bowers. I think that's a good price for Lamar, to be honest. Yogurt, 110, 107, early-ish first, and George Pickens for Lamar. I think I would take Lamar there, to be honest.
Yeah, I would take Lamar for sure too. Where do we leave? Okay.
I like picking later in a third round reversal, by the way, Brett.
Yeah, I do too. The reason I feel like it gives you a lot more flexibility. I think the best spot to pick
from actually is the mid part, because if you can catch the end
of the mid
quarterback tier, I don't. I think if you can catch Burrow, Lamar, Jalen Hurts, CJ Stroud at 107, 108, maybe 106, worst case scenario.
But like you just don't get the benefit of the third round reversal
third round tier as well. I think you're in a great spot.
I just don't think you get any benefit, whether it's a third round reversal or not in that instance. So basically, you just view the 107 as being the best pick overall, because the difference between the 3.6 versus the 3.7 or the
caveat is that Burrow, for me, because I value Burrow as my 105, 106. If Burrow slides to 108, 109, and you're in a third round reversal, then you also get a guy I have ranked in the early to mid portion of the first round at 108, 109, plus a better third round pick. So Burrow is the hinging person there. If Burrow slides and you're picking 108, 109, I do think that's the best spot to pick from in a startup draft for me.
Like the big difference that we've gone over is like for me personally, like Burrow would be kicked back here. I'd have the 3 wide receivers, Justin Herbert, and then I would also have Caleb kind of in that area too. So for me, it's like if I can get the latest of those assets and also get an early third, which is the difference between Gibbs, Puka versus like Jalen Waddle. Like I love that personally. So like we'll go through quickly the board, obviously pretty standard first round. I don't think there's many surprises. The big surprise I would say so far in this draft would be 203 or the 103 rookie pick going ahead of some of these quarterbacks, Amon-Ra, like that range, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like probably around that range. Like I personally, as much as I love Drake May, like he's my 18th overall player. I just can't pull the trigger where he did.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you wanna, do you wanna highlight our two teams, then we can like the rest of the board. You guys might be able to see here that the running back position just completely got nuked in this draft. Like we got Nick Chubb going in round 13. We got Montgomery falling to round 9. I took Isaiah Pacheco in round 7. Like the running back position completely devalued in this room, as is the case in FSE leagues. But we did actually have a running back accelerator of a 0.25 for per carry in this league. So probably building out a sneakily good running back core might be a viable strategy in this format, knowing that you could get great value on it.
For sure. So we'll go through our respective teams. For reference on mine, I believe I also have accrued 2 extra 2025 firsts and an extra 2025 2, I believe. So
that would be
I have
me.
From you, and I think, who did I get the other first from? Schmidt? I believe I got it from Schmidt. So I have Allen, Kyler Murray, Puka Nacua as my main building blocks. I took the 108 rookie pick, like I was mentioning, at the 4-7 here. That was a big decision point. I just feel comfortable in the asset value at that point. Really, I still can't believe I got Kyle Pitts at the 6-6. I fucking love that value in a premium. Love that value. And then I believe these were 4 second round rookie picks. Or actually, this one might have been a first round. I can't remember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think
6,
that's 201, if I'm not mistaken.
It's 201. Okay, so 201. I think it was like 205, 208, and 209 or something like that. I pretty much got. And then obviously Ramondre Stevenson mixed in there at the 11 too. So I feel comfortable here. We'll go to your team as well. More of a contending team. Obviously, you gave me your 2025 1 and 2 here, but I mean, I'd be shocked if you weren't in the top 4 teams at the end of the year. To be honest, you got a pretty gnarly competing team.
Yeah, so basically, I don't have my 1 and 2, like you said. I netted an extra 6th rounder out of it. That was basically the trade that I went up to get JSN. The reason I did it is because I don't have a JSN share in all of my 12 Dynasty leagues. So I wanted to get 1 JSN share, especially knowing that I already had 3 solidified wide receiver 1s on my team. Getting JSN as my 4th wide receiver has so much upside for him to accumulate value and make my wide receiver core just an absolute monster. If JSN hits his range of outcomes. Because if JSN hits, he'll end up being the 2nd best receiver in my receiver core, which is saying a lot because I have AJ Brown and DJ Moore. And then I got Achan. I give up my 1st and 2nd. I net an extra 6th rounder. I net up a move up from the 5-4 to the 4-11 to get Achan, who I thought was a sliding value at that point in time. And I also got an extra 13th rounder out of it. So again, you don't want to sell your 1st and 2nd round rookie picks in startups very often. I would say this is the first time in like 3 years I've actually done it, to be honest. But when you can net an extra 6th rounder out of a 2025 class that doesn't project quite as good as, say, last year's class did, or 2023's class at the time before especially the startups had taken place. And then the 2nd rounder, again, I got an extra move up from 5 to 4, and then I also got a 13th rounder out of it. So again, don't love selling my 1st and my 2nd round rookie picks in 2025, but I thought this is the type of room that it would have worked in. And I think getting a 6th, a 13th, and a move up out of it is probably equivalent value.
Well, especially if we're comparing like contending rosters, like right off the bat, I believe this is a start 12 league. I want to say, let me see. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Start 11. Okay. So it's a start 11 league. So you're going to need to be able to fill out your flexes here, and having the wide receiver firepower that you do there, especially from, I mean, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4. Your top 6 wide receivers are going to be able to be guys that work into your lineup every week. Achan, Pacheco as your main 2 running backs. You have, probably a more volatile quarterback core, but
it's risky. My quarterback core is the way that this team crumbles for sure. Because if Lawrence and Levis both hit, I feel really comfortable in their projections long term. Like if Levis is the next Jordan Love and Lawrence hits his range of outcomes where he's a mid-second round or a mid-first round startup pick this time next offseason. And, Geno Smith and Daniel Jones are both contending trade pieces that I could sell if I'm not competing, my quarterbacks aren't hitting, or I could just use them while Will Levis kind of develops a little bit. Again, risky team here. I also have Dallas Goedert on this team, but I'm kind of covering it right now. So I have Cole Kmet, Dallas Goedert, which isn't the greatest tight end core in the world, but at the same time, like, I think you could do worse. Those 2 guys are like, part of good offenses. Caleb Williams is coming into Chicago. I do actually have DJ Moore and Cole Kmet and AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert, which is a little annoying, but at the same time, I feel pretty good about this team. Like, again, I took a bit of risk with it with the Levis JSN picks specifically, I would say, and even Lawrence to a degree, but I like the upside of how it could turn out.
Yeah, and like for what it's worth, there's still some like really solid values. Having the rookie draft or rookie picks implemented in this draft, like we're still seeing on the board. Like I'm not going to actually unveil all that because I like people can just see what I have on my board. But like there are still some names you guys can trust me for what we have available.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty much.
So Danny's got his Q set, so I'm assuming he doesn't want to show that. But
yeah, I showed it for a second. Hopefully, you guys don't use that against me.
Yeah, for sure. So, like you said, thank you guys for joining us. Our wide receiver prospect model is done. It's finished. We have not put the 2024 class in it yet, but the correlation of the model beats draft capital by a significant margin. We're also trying to correlate the model to dynasty value, ergo, how the players peaked in terms of...
Which matters a ton.
It does, because while Elijah Moore, for example, never hit from a fantasy points per game perspective outside of that first season, that game sample size that we had of him, you could have sold Elijah Moore after his rookie year for a top 15 dynasty wide receiver price tag. So that matters. It doesn't just matter how good your production was. It also matters post year one. What could you have sold this guy for? Because, Treylon Burks, Jameson Williams, these guys haven't hit so far in the NFL. You could still get top 25 wide receiver price tags for them after their rookie seasons.
Yeah, the way I kind of look at it, right, is Deontay Johnson's been a wide receiver 2-3 in fantasy for how long? He never peaked in terms of market value price than what Elijah Moore did. So I feel like just looking at a model and thinking, well, Deontay Johnson was the better bet because if you held him, the production's there. It's like that should be one factor. Absolutely. I do feel like longevity of production does matter, but if he never peaked at the price tag of this guy who doesn't have remotely close to his production, like that should also be factored in as well. I really do feel like measuring both peak dynasty value and the ultimate production at hand here is the best way to evaluate it. Because again, if you're betting on an asset, like you want the ability to be able to sell the asset for a profit after the year. And if Elijah Moore, again, if you've held him throughout, you're probably not going to love the value that he's returned. But if you're able to sell on him once he peaked, that 2024 1 and 2 you got, or 2023 1 and 2 that you got, you're probably thankful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, once we get the 2024 prospects in here, we will definitely, put it on Flock Fantasy, get you guys a great, at the very least, we're still trying to figure out how we want to get it on the site. Because I want to integrate it right into the site rather than just sharing it via Google Sheet or whatever, because I don't want anybody ripping this off, because it legit took me 3 weeks to make this thing. Like, it took me so fucking long. And I'm saying 3 weeks of like working on it 4 or 5 hours a day. Like it took me a long ass time to make this thing. So at the very least, I'll write a massive article on it and put it on the site, but hopefully we're able to integrate it directly into the site so you can see all of the data there. But I'm planning to do the same thing for running backs. I'm not sure when it'll be done. I'm hoping I can get the wide receiver one completely wrapped up, all the 2024 prospects in here by the end of the week, the 20th of April or so. And I can have the running back model, which should take me less time to build anyway, because running backs have less metrics that go into production anyways. Hopefully I can get that done by like a week after the draft.
Yeah, no, I dig that.
But by the time rookie drafts come along, we should have a wide receiver and a prospect model that has ranges of outcomes and comps and, tiered prospects. And if you guys are wondering who's the best performing wide receiver in the history of this model, it goes back to 2016 because I wanted to use new school metrics. Jamar Chase is the only prospect that hit a 90% plus grade in the model, making him the only league winner prospect here of the model. I'm assuming once I put the 2024 class in, that Marvin Harrison will actually be the best prospect in the history of the model. But at the very least, he should be right on par with Jamar Chase. So again, we don't know for sure how it's going to play out, but I'm very excited to get the 2024 class in here because there's a massive cluster of tier 2 wide receivers we got to sort through, a massive cluster of third and fourth round caliber receivers that will go in the NFL draft that we want to sort through. We want to find the next Puka Nacua. We want to find the next Tank Dell, the next Jaden Reed, even the next Rashee Rice. Yeah. And this model has pointed out pretty much all of those guys, specifically Puka Nacua. If I had this thing last year, I would have drafted Puka Nacua in every single fucking league. And I'm so pissed at myself for not having this last year. So really excited to see that. Of course, that'll be all available on flockfantasy.com. As we talked about, 8 wide receiver film breakdowns live on the site. Dynasty rankings update. That's what I'm doing right after this because I want to update my rankings. It's been about 2 weeks. I want to update those as well as, prospect. Our draft guide. We'll see one more update leading up to the NFL draft, probably the week of the NFL draft. I got to move up Ricky Pearsall and I had to move down Troy Franklin. I got to move up certain guys. So we're going to make some last minute updates. And then after the draft, we'll have some superlatives on the draft guide as well. So all that stuff. Link down below in the description for flockfantasy.com, promo code FSE. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.